Breaking moments ago, the Republican National Committee is considering declaring former President Trump the party's presumptive 2024 nominee. Fox News has just gotten a hold of a copy of this proposed resolution. It has not been approved. And of course, Nikki Haley is still in the race. She is campaigning throughout the weekend in South Carolina. She lost Iowa and she lost New Hampshire, coming in third in Iowa and second in New Hampshire, about an 11-point spread, a decisive win by the former president. But the RNC, question is, are they rushing things? Let's bring in Fox Business anchor David Asman and Fox News contributor Robert Wolf, former economic advisor to President Obama and now CEO of 32 Advisors. Great to have both of you with us today. So David, Nikki Haley has a number of events that are scheduled in South Carolina over the weekend. She has said she wants to get back to her home state, that there's only been 2 states. Obviously, she didn't win in either one of them. What do you make of this push by some at the RNC to declare him the presumptive nominee at this point?
Well, Ronna McDaniel had suggested that everybody should get together behind one candidate after what we saw in New Hampshire. The big question is what she decides to do now. I mean, there's a lot of questions about whether she's going to join a no-labels group, maybe Joe Manchin at the top of that ticket, and she'd be running as VP or vice versa, who knows. But the bottom line is she has to figure out whether she's going to be a Republican or a Democrat, not an independent at this point, because she has a future in front of her. I mean, 2028.
She's never suggested that she wants to be a Democrat, David, or even an
she
independent.
hasn't, or an independent. And 2028 is not that far away. And of course, Donald Trump, if he wins the election, he would only be president for 1 term. So that would mean that either she could be a VP. I mean, that's after all the animosity, it'd be hard to imagine that Trump would pick her as a VP. But barring that, she could run in 2028. If she broke off or defied the RNC on this, I think it really hurts her chances for the future.
Yeah, she has said, Robert, that she's a Republican, that she's a conservative, and that she pushes back hard against the idea that she is even a moderate. She pushes back against that based on her immigration rules in South Carolina and what she sees as a strong conservative record. What do you think about this in terms of this resolution from the RNC and the fact that Ronna McDaniel said the other night with Brett and I that she thinks it's time for Nikki to think long and hard and get out, essentially, was I think what she was suggesting.
Yeah, I totally disagree with where the RNC is going. The DNC, if you recall, when it was Obama-Hillary, they allowed it to go on forever. When it was Bernie-Hillary, they allowed it to go on forever. And when it was Bernie-Biden, it went on forever. I think you let it play out. It's clear that, Trump is, for the most part, going to win, especially with the RNC changing the rules where plurality wins, and it's not proportional, unlike the Democratic. I also think that Ambassador Haley is a staunch conservative. She's more of a Reagan conservative. She's tough on immigration. She's hawkish. She is, pro-life. I think we should let it play out. It's a 2-person race only for about a week and a half, and I think the RNC should be fair to her. Now, if Trump was president, then I would say there should be no primary, and he's the incumbent. But today, he's not the incumbent.
Yeah, that makes it a very uncharted territory, really, to have someone running again after 4 years who was president of the United States. And I think that's why he, understandably, as much as we would have liked him, David, to participate in the debates, I think he sees himself in a different category based on that, which seems fair. But, David, it seems to me, if I'm right on these sore loser laws, that Nikki Haley, having gone through 2 Republican primaries, would not be an option for the no labels team. That could be hashed out, but that's my understanding.
I mean, they're to a great extent, I think they're making up the rules as they go along on this in terms of what no labels is, what it represents. Whether it might include somehow RFK. And again, what Robert was saying about Democrats, I think RFK Jr. and Bernie Sanders, when he was running, would have some disagreements about how amiable the Democrats are to challengers. But the point is that I generally agree that it would be bad for Nikki if she goes against the will of the RNC on this one.
Yeah, I remember
I think
the
they
Bernie
should let it
supporters
play
with
out.
their shirts turning around at the convention, turning their backs to Hillary Clinton when she walked out because they felt that they were so mistreated.
Yes.
So this is the tricky territory that we enter at this time in the season. Thank you very much, you guys.
Sure.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.